I too loud?
Yes, everyone's.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So we've all found out that Alex has a very checkered history while you guys couldn't hear us. Apparently he's wanted in multiple states. Okay. First thing he said, though, when we asked him about criminal thing, said it wasn't me. Perfect response, by the way, because if you ever are asked something, say nothing. I only want to talk to my lawyer. Why? Because it's confidential. Whatever you talk to with your lawyer, no one can talk to them about it unless you threaten the lawyer. Don't threaten the lawyer. Well, if basically you get in a dispute and you sue the lawyer can use confidential information as a defense. The other thing is you cannot tell a lawyer, I am going to go out and murder somebody. The lawyer can and will, and better, tell the authorities, we can't let that happen. Years ago when I was a paralegal, I was working at a law firm, and we got a phone call once, and the phone call was from some people that said, do you guys do criminal defense? And the guy answering the phone said, yeah, we do criminal defense. Said, do you guys do bank robbery defense? The guy on the phone said, yeah, we do bank robbery defense. When did it happen? The guy on the other end said, well, it hasn't happened yet. And we're like, we don't do bank robbery defense. So that was avoiding that problem. Anyway, moving back to authentication. Let's take a step back. So we're looking at documents. Ay vey. What are we doing? Okay. You know what? It's all good. I could tell you guys lawyer jokes while we try and figure this out. All right. A couple of guys heard these jokes. How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? How many can you afford? It was so cold the lawyers had their hands in their own pockets last night. Okay, moving on. Authentication. So if you're trying to get something in to evidence, you basically have a couple of methods. One is stipulate, meaning agree with the other side. Everybody plays nice in the sandbox. Doesn't happen a lot. Number two, you subpoena a person who has knowledge to authenticate it. For example, what is your name, sir? Ryan? Okay, Ryan. Ryan, let's say you drafted a document, and I want to get that document into evidence. And no one else has any knowledge about this process of document preparation by you because it's your business document. So I subpoena you and I say, Brian, did you prepare this document? Your answer would be, yes, excellent. And was this done in the ordinary course of business? And is this copy of the document that I hold before me a true and correct version of that document? Excellent, excellent. Your Honor, I would like to identify this document and mark it as Exhibit 1 for the plaintiff. Judge will say, so marked. Your Honor, I would like to move to enter the exhibit. Defense, any objections? Well, he authenticated it. No objections. All right, it is in. You've got your document in. Someone wants to get in, Greg? Admit somebody? Oh, okay. All right, they got it. Okay, great. Admissions is another way. What we do before trial is we do what's called discovery, where we try to anticipate what everybody's going to bring into trial. So we exchange documents, questions, answers, admissions. And what you can do is you can do a request for admission, asking the other side, hey, here's an attached copy of this document. Would you agree that this is a true and correct copy? Yeah, okay. And would you agree that this document represents this particular photograph online? Yeah, we agree. Now, if they don't, there are certain ways to make them pay for that. But those are some of the basic ways that we do this. Now, we're going to talk about a very bad scene. This is the new world. You guys have heard of black boxes in airplanes, right? We now have black boxes in cars. Black boxes are called EDRs, Event Data Recorders. Yes, for the last 20 years, we all have EDRs. In the last 4, 5, 6 years, those EDRs have gotten very smart. And those EDRs not only tell you speed changes, but they also tell you directions, steering wheel, the pressure on the brake, the pressure on the gas, whatever you're working on. So this case that we're looking at right here, it's a very, very bad scene. A 20 2-year-old gentleman was driving Topanga Canyon in a $100,000+ car that his mommy and daddy gave him, a BMW. And he took this thing to 105 or 101 miles an hour on Topanga Canyon. That's what the event data recorder tells you. That event data recorder tells you that everything was running at 5 seconds prior to the impact with another vehicle, which was traveling about 50 miles an hour the opposite direction. The gentleman driving the BMW is moving along, and at about 1 to 3 seconds before the impact, he starts to realize there's a car coming and I can't avoid it. And he presses that brake with all the might he has. He moves his steering wheel from the 0 position to 4 degrees, to 12 degrees, to 40, to 100. He is pulling that steering wheel as hard as he can for his life. All documented right there. Then the vehicle goes down to about 62 miles an hour. 00 is the point of impact. Okay? On the right side are kilometers. This gentleman is currently sitting in the Van Nuys jail. Has been for a year. He killed one girl, badly injured some other ones. Okay? That EDR evidence was pulled down by the sheriffs, LA County. When I have a case involving an EDR without a death, I hire a gentleman. There's 2 different guys I hire. They're experts. They're qualified to go to the car, bring a computer, plug it in, download the data, and then put it into this format for us. Whoops. And then, if I need them to, I can have them authenticate that. This is what you guys are going to be doing. Stuff like this. And I'm going to tell you guys, for an event data recorder download, that kind of work, just to pull that information off a car, they charge me anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a pop. Boys and women, if there are any on the Zoom, it is good business. You will make money. Do what you're doing. Do this as well. Become qualified. Testify once in a while. This is a great side gig. Okay? I'm not kidding. You guys will make some bank.
I just want to note that I know a couple people that do this on the side, and they're full-time evidence guys working for various police departments, and they run a side gig doing this on the side for private attorneys.
Are they doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad the checks are all clearing. Why do we pay so much money? Because we want that evidence in front of the jury at all costs. This case is worth multiple seven figures.
Why are you thinking that?
Because those people will do the downloads that I have the evidence. If I, as an attorney, do not get that evidence, and it's out there, and it tells me what this schmuck is doing, okay? And I don't get that done, I ain't doing the job, I'm malpracticing, I'm calling my carrier saying, hey, you got some claims coming, which we don't let happen, okay? That's not the way we roll. So we want to gather evidence. Now, the state of California has just changed the law last week about evidence, about discovery. California, for the past, I don't know, how old is California? 200 years, 100 years old, right? 1880s. California has had civil discovery where you have to ask for data from the other side. In the federal jurisdiction, which is basically like California, except it's nationwide. There's different courts. There's 50 state courts, and there's one federal. We have 51 jurisdictions. So in the federal jurisdiction, they have a disclosure requirement. When you file a lawsuit, you must just hand everything over without them asking. And the defense has the same obligation to hand everything over without us asking. We are enacting that next January. The world is going to change. People are going to have to adjust. A great opportunity for you guys if you're doing evidence downloads and stuff like that. Yes?
It really wasn't like that California place now?
It hasn't hit yet.
Okay. Are there other places that still haven't?
Well, Arizona does it. Nevada does it. Several states are still like California. California was the last state in the union to have a whistleblower from attorney to attorney. If I see an attorney do something now under the new law because of Tom Girardi, I must report that attorney to the state bar. We didn't used to have that. That is brand new. We're the only state that didn't have it. We're just like everybody else now. Okay. California is just a weird little place. Now, if you go to Louisiana, none of their rules are like ours. They use the French version of law, the French common law. So everybody stays out of Louisiana. Anyways, so if you guys are looking to expand your options, please look at that as something to consider. And you must do what you love. Don't do it just for the cash. Do it because you like it. You know, experiment with it. Try it. See if you like it. And if you do, it's a great thing if you do what you love. Testimonial evidence. Basically, that's people talking about stuff. Testimonial evidence can come in the form of live testimony. Yes?
Yeah.
The persons who have the ability to run the EDR doc, it's a docking thing. And they have their own docking thing and they have training in it. And then they pull it down and they can say, okay, based on my training, this is the machine I have. Did you ever see My Cousin Vinny? Who hasn't seen My Cousin Vinny? Good. Okay. Okay. Your homework assignment is okay. My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny is very funny because it takes evidence and it actually makes it part of the script. And one of the scenes in My Cousin Vinny, Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei, they're talking about authentication where there's a dripping sink faucet. And they're talking about, was this accurately torqued when they tried to turn off? Oh, yes, it was torqued. How do you know it was torqued? Right before I used it, it was checked, it was measured, it was authenticated, and here's the certificate. Basically, you're just authenticating the machinery works. You know how to read it. It comes down a certificate. You have it. You have the documentation. To be more specific, I could definitely bring one of the EDR guys down the next time, and he could tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, so witness testimony. Witnesses basically are saying things that they know. I can tell you what I did when I was driving into the parking lot. I was there. I was a witness. It's my testimony. Can I tell you what, please tell me your name again? Ryan. Can I tell you what Ryan was doing when he pulled in the parking lot? No, I didn't see Ryan. I wasn't a witness to it. But I know Ryan. He's a crazy driver. He probably drove in backwards on 2 wheels. Okay? Completely. I don't have any basis for that. Motion to strike, granted. Goodbye. So, witnesses can talk about what they know. When you talk about witnesses, witnesses can be sized up by the jury. This is what the judge will read to the jurors, and the jurors will get a copy of these instructions when they go back and deliberate. And basically, they size them up. Basically, how well did the witness perceive something? How did they come off? Things like that. Are they credible? You as a juror have to decide that. And when it comes to witnesses, there's something called impeachment. Anybody want to take a stab at what impeachment is? Come on. It's a softball pitch, guys. I'm saying there's something wrong with witnesses. Brad. Yes, to basically disbelieve them. If you find that the witness is not telling the truth, if they are impeached, then you can choose not only to disregard what they said about one thing, you can disregard everything they said. So if you guys are ever doing any expert witness work, always be truthful, even if the truth is not good. Always tell the truth. You never want to get impeached. So when it comes to impeachment, you can impeach somebody with other witnesses, with what we call sub rosa, basically surveillance, or what we love nowadays, social media. Nowadays, people are putting so much dumb stuff on social media, it contradicts what they're saying in the real world. I had a guy who was a contractor who said that my injured client never worked at his location. Yet this dumb contractor put a video of himself, and in the back was my guy working at the site where he got injured. I used that. Insurance company went from 0 to north of $500,000 because of his own stupidity. Anyways, impeachment. One of the things about impeachment, sometimes Not everything you do is learned in books. You have to trust your skills, your instinct. I had a case where I had a client who was not the nicest gentleman, very amiable guy, very nice guy, but he was oftentimes on the wrong side of the law. First time I met him on his civil case was at a county jail. Now, he didn't have a good claim. He had a good case. He had an injury, a air conditioning unit fell, hit him on the shoulder, 3 surgeries. But he had some unlikable ex-girlfriends. And this defense attorney that I was working against was a horrible human being. And she actually called the ex-girlfriends and dragged one into court just because. So I, as a character witness, but nobody cared. I just didn't want to say something stupid. So I did something I had not done before. I reached into my briefcase, I pulled out a manila envelope, and I placed it on the counsel table. Crossed my arms. And this defense attorney said, "What is that?" I said, "Are you calling the girlfriend?" "Yes." "It's impeachment material. You have to show it to me." No. You don't have to disclose impeachment material in discovery. It's impeachment. When you put discovery out, it's to put on your case in chief. To impeach you, I don't have to give this to you. "Your Honor, sidebar." She goes to the judge. "Your Honor, he's got a document and he won't show it to me." "Mr. Lazarus, what's the document?" "Impeachment material, Your Honor." "Counsel, he doesn't have to show it to you." So we sat down. She calls the witness. The witness takes the stand. She says, "What is your name?" "My name is so-and-so." I moved the envelope ever so slightly. She says, "No further questions." And she leaves. I take the envelope and put it back in my briefcase because there was nothing in the envelope.
No.
Nothing.
No.
Okay? You must use your wits. You must use your skills. Not everything is going to be factual and legal. Sometimes you just got to have the gumption to try something. I can bring in the witness and the client if you want, but that did take place. Okay. Bias. So she brought this person in because this person had a very big bias against my client, and she wanted to make my client look bad. I was very proud of that moment, keeping that out. Okay. Hearsay. Anybody ever hear the words hearsay? Yes, sir. What's your name? Aksha? Hi, Aksha. I'm Marc. Nice to meet you. What is hearsay? Do you know? You've heard the word. It is an objection to testimony, yes. It's an objection to certain types of evidence. Anything else you know about it? Let's explore a little bit. Hearsay is lovely. Hearsay is when someone tries to offer evidence of testimony for the truth of the matter that's being said. For example, if I walk in and say, "Greg has a red shirt." Oh, that's not good. I'm sorry. One second. Let me try again. Hearsay. Greg told me that Alex likes to drive backwards in the drive-thru at McDonald's. Okay? That is hearsay. Why? Because I am offering the facts of Alex driving backwards in the drive-thru through testimony of someone who's not in the courtroom. Okay? Hearsay is inadmissible. When Greg comes in and says, "I observed Alex driving backwards in the drive-thru at McDonald's," that is his observation. It's no longer hearsay. If I try to offer that evidence because he's not around, ain't going to happen. That's why we are always trying to get witnesses to come in. I had a case, Palm Springs, and a cop had written something, and I couldn't get it in because it was hearsay. So I actually tracked down the cop at his home in the middle of trial, drove to his house, knocked on the door. "Hey, man, are you busy tomorrow?" During my trial, he says, "I'll be happy to appear, but how did you get my address?" I said, I got it from my investigator. He goes, "That's a misdemeanor. You cannot get a cop's address. You cannot do this." "I'm sorry, will you still show up?" "Sure." "Thank you." Okay. You learn as you do. Okay. Yes.
What's mean
Inadmissible means that the jury's not allowed to hear it.
Okay.
So if I put Greg on and I say, no, I don't put Greg on, I go on and I say, Greg told me that Alex likes to do that. Judge will say, the defense will say, objection, hearsay. Judge will say, absolutely, hearsay, inadmissible, move to strike, yes, stricken. Jury will disregard that. No evidence of that being true. So now, can you get hearsay in for other reasons? Absolutely. Again, this is a my cousin Vinny moment. I'm sorry, sir, what's your name? Joseph, I'm sorry, we're going to leave you behind on this one. Sir? Jake, Joseph and Jake. I feel bad. The rest of you have seen my cousin Vinny. You remember when he says, when did you shoot the clerk? He says, I shot the clerk? Yeah, when did you do it? And the cop goes on the stand and says, yeah, he said he shot the clerk. Why did that get in? It's a real actual evidence code thing. It's because it's an admission against interest. He admitted to something. I shot the clerk. Now, they took it out of context. It was a question. So that's why they don't like hearsay. Hearsay is very challenging. For example, for those of you that are English majors, you know, hey, let's eat, Grandma, right? You take the comma out. Okay. Now, hearsay is if someone says something a certain way, it might get in, but by and large, it will not because it can be misinterpreted similarly. And I'm sorry that people assume. Yeah.
Even if the cop didn't take it out of context, the cop still could have just made it up. That's what.
That is true. Anybody can make anything up, whether or not it gets past the sniff test or gets through all these gates. That's why we have so many rules. The rules are to protect those who are being prosecuted. Okay. And when it comes to civil cases, who's actually being prosecuted? If I sue Joe, for an auto accident, am I really suing you?
No, it's more like my insurance.
It is your insurance. Who is your insurance? If you don't have one, just make one up. Sorry? USA. Thank your family for being for their service, because someone is in the service in your family. Yes, USAA is a good company. If you have anybody who's been in the service and you buy USAA, you're doing well. Anybody here have State Farm? Thank God. Okay, good. State Farm, you have State Farm, there's a good chance I'm going to file a lawsuit. State Farm, each company in the state of California has taken turns as an insurance carrier of being the worst in the state. Okay. One time it was Allstate. One time it was Mercury. One time it was Geico, Progressive. For the last couple of years, it's been State Farm. Yes. I have Auto Club. If you're curious, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but State Farm is finding itself in a lot of lawsuits. Why? Because State Farm had changed its leadership. They took a lot of losses when there were some fires in California. COVID hit. The rates for all insurance companies were stopped from increasing during COVID, which really a lot of carriers are leaving the state because of it. They couldn't make enough money. For every dollar they take in, they're spending $1.25. At least State Farm is, I think. So I understand their method to the madness, but they're really doing their best to try and make it back up on the claims. Anyways, demonstrative evidence. Demonstrative evidence is evidence that is used to demonstrate the ideas of whoever's testifying, usually an expert. Demonstrative evidence is the best. We all love that. Does it go in with the jury? Never. But it helps to explain the story so that when they go there, they've already heard it. There are studies. What people read, they retain about 5%. What they hear, 10%. What they see, about 20%. Okay? So you want demonstratives. You really do. They study this stuff. So an example, physical evidence, demonstrative evidence. This is a tragic case. This gentleman was driving home with his family and fell asleep. And when he did so, his vehicle went off the road and it came into contact with, it's a little dark, there's a tree here, there's a roadway here. It's 15 feet from the roadway. The code says it needs to be 20 feet away. Okay? They blew it. They should have been 5 feet over. Doesn't change the fact that he's partly culpable. The city and the county. It was their tree, their road. But this gentleman suffered an injury like I'd never seen in my life. This gentleman's injury is called Charles Bonnet syndrome. I've been doing this stuff for over 30 years. I never knew what Charles Bonnet syndrome was until this case. Charles Bonnet syndrome is when you look out at the world, you see certain things. Your eyes send that message to your brain. When you close your eyes, it's dark. His brain damage was so bad that one side of his vision was just memories popping into that eye's neural connection. That played a movie in his head 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even while his eyes are closed. One eye is playing a memory. He's looking at a bus. He's seeing a dress of his mother's from his childhood. Then he sees a field. Then he sees a whatever. Okay? Horrible injury. So the damages on this case were astronomical. Okay? If I made you watch a bad movie in one eye for the rest of your life that you couldn't turn off, there's no amount of money that you would accept. You wouldn't take that deal. So we got, even though he fell asleep at the wheel, we got the county, because they didn't comply, the vehicle, as you can see, and again, we're talking about physical evidence, went under the tree. His head was where the bow of the tree, or the bough of the tree, was sticking out. Okay.
What's the picture with what's on one side and what he sees on the other side? Is that evidence in the courtroom?
This case settled on the courtroom steps. Okay. Actually, the county, the city, and believe it or not, the vehicle maker all came to understand that there was a percentage of fault. Now, in California, you can have multiple what we call tortfeasors, people at fault. And the multiple tortfeasors can be jointly and severally liable. What that means is you have two types of damages in most personal injury cases. There are variances. Most of them you have economic damages and non-economic damages. Economic damages, anyone want to take a guess? Money for what?
Sorry.
Money for what?
For,
economic stuff, things you can put a number to, like medical bills,
right,
lost income, past, future, things like that. Economic damages, on this case, were huge for the future. Non-economic damages are pain, suffering, things that you experience, the money you get to be compensated. When you see these cheesy lawyer commercials saying, we're going to get you paid, okay? That's non-economic damages. California law says, even if you're not at fault for an accident and you have an accident without insurance, you don't get non-economic damages. You lose your right. So make sure, not only for your protection, for your finances, but for your claims, make sure you have auto insurance. Second off, anybody here know what uninsured motorist is? Oh, I'm going to talk about that next. Okay. Nonetheless, so joint and several liability among tortfeasors means that they can be liable for their percentage of fault for the pain and suffering. So if they're 10% at fault, they pay 10% of the value of the pain and suffering. But they can be up to jointly responsible for all the economic damages that are proven among themselves. So if I've got a case that's worth $1 million for pain and suffering and $1 million for future medical, the $1 million for pain and suffering, if they each have 10%, okay, each one is going to pay, $100,000, but each one of them could be liable for the full amount of whatever economic damages are awarded by the jury by themselves. You can't just point it out. They can all be hit with it. I'm probably not explaining that well, but nonetheless, I'll do it again. All right, so this is the case. We went to trial. This is the one with that bad judge. And this was a truck versus 3 automobiles. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, I am. Do you know the name of the gentleman who had the head injury? No, you don't. Okay. This one I can give you names because I actually went to trial. This one I can tell you this was Miss Hansen's case. Miss Hansen, we represented her well. She's very happy, and also it's public record. Okay. But I can tell you about case examples.
I remember my mom was on jury duty.
Mm-hmm.
Told me that she wasn't allowed to talk about.
Your mother is so right. Always listen to that woman. Okay. When you are a juror, you are not allowed to talk about the cases. You are not allowed to research it yourself. You keep your mouth shut. You don't even talk to the lawyers. In the hallway, you don't do that. Okay? We've had jurors thrown off for doing stuff like that all the time. Don't talk about a case if you're a juror. Okay? Wait till the end. You can talk about it. That 2-month case that I had, we got a $16 million verdict after 2 months. The defense was offering $600,000. And at the end of the case, my co-counsel finally got to talk to one of the jurors. And the first thing he asked the juror was, so which was the best dressed attorney in the courtroom? I'm like, are you kidding me? That you haven't talked to these people in 2 months? That's the first question that comes out of your mouth? Yeah, I wanted to hear it because the guy works at a clothing place. It's a little bit insane what we do. All right. Actually, I talked to one juror once after a trial. This was actually interesting. Hey, Greg, what time do you go on? I don't want to take up your time. Okay. All right. I want to. Sorry. Okay. Thanks. So I talked to a juror after a trial, and I said, so why did you vote the way you voted? Well, my client, it got impeached. She said something that wasn't true. Someone put up a picture. She said she hadn't been running any marathons since the accident. Boom, here's a picture of her running a marathon. Lost all credibility. It's terrible, but it's a learning lesson. So I asked one of the jurors, so why did you vote the way you voted? He goes, I voted because she got impeached, but you should ask this gentleman why he voted the way he voted. Okay, sir, can you tell me, why did you vote the way you voted? Because you want to hear the bad. That's the only way you're going to get better. And he said, well, because your client was wearing green nail polish during the trial. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please? Oh, yeah, your client was wearing green nail polish during the trial. And I looked at the first juror, I said, are you messing with me? He goes, this is real. I'm like, okay. You mind explaining that just a little more for me? Why, yes, I'd be happy to. Your client came to court wearing green nail polish, and she was trying to send a subliminal message to me that she wanted money because it was green, and I didn't like that subliminal message, so I voted against her. Thank you for telling me that. By the way, none of my clients have ever worn green nail polish to court ever since that, as weird as that is. Okay. By the way, I don't wear a fancy watch. I don't drive a Porsche. I don't do things that would alienate jurors. You want to be an everyday person. Yes.
When the judges strike that from the record, the jurors are supposed to forget that they heard it or whatever.
Yes.
What does that actually mean?
Oh, you can't unring a bell. When's the last time you unheard somebody whisper something? No. Once you hear it, it's out there. Okay. But supposedly, even though it's a legal fallacy, you instruct them, they will do it to the best of their ability. Now, you as a juror, if I told you, ignore that testimony that she had green nail polish, would you? No, I can ignore it. In the back of your head, it's still there, right? It's not going away. We're all humans. Yes.
Just on that little piece, if they're deliberating later in the juror room, and they're telling their logic, maybe the other jurors could remind them this test that hey, that's actually not part of it.
That is absolutely a wonderful point. What you do when you voir dire the jury, you're trying to get people to go in there and you talk to them when they voir dire and you get them to commit. You will follow the rules that are given to you by the court. Yes. And you will remind other jurors to follow those rules if you see it happening and you don't think they're following the rules. Will you commit to doing that? That's part of your job as a juror. Okay, I guess I will. Well, you guess or will you do it, please? This is what we're asking you to commit to. Yes, I will. And because you do that, hopefully they will. But that is an excellent insight.
Everyone aspires one day to retire and become head of an HOA and just be rules all day. So there's someone in that council or in that chamber that
we share a dream.
Yeah, yeah, it's a horrible dream.
I love suing HOAs, by the way.
Excellent.
By the way, I have sued so many companies. It's ridiculous. Airlines, trucking companies, manufacturers, businesses, building owners, states, counties, even the country. So, yeah, you sue the United States from time to time. Okay, it happens. Anyways, back to Ms. Hansen's case, which was a verdict that was actually a mistrial because of this judge. So this diagram is not admissible unless the parties stipulated to it. We wouldn't stipulate to it. They wouldn't stipulate to it. So I had to bring in an expert to recreate the accident. And what I did was I had the expert create slides of each impact. Whoops. Impact number 1, impact number 2, impact number 3, number 4, and impact number 5. So first one was between the truck and my client. Second one was between the truck and another car, which rolled over. So they call that an impact. Next impact was another sedan. This was a semi-truck, by the way. And then the sedan hitting the wall. Okay. This guy did some damage. But he said it wasn't me. Okay. So what did we do? We look at the statement that he gave to the police. Now, this statement, if it's an admission against interest, I can get it in. Okay. It doesn't really say much. Basically, he says, that's all I remember. There was someone spinning out. I wasn't looking in my mirror. I don't know what happened. But, that's his statement. So we take his deposition. Deposition is actual testimony conducted between the witness and the lawyer, and they have their defense attorney present. There's a court reporter. Usually there's a videographer. Deposition transcript. This one was a couple hundred pages. I had to take it up in Bakersfield because it was 2018 before everybody said, gee, this Zoom thing's a really good idea. By the way, now that the genie is out of the bottle, I barely drive anywhere now. I did 2 depositions this week, both at my desk. I appear via, WebEx for a lot of the court appearances. Some of the attorneys in my office who came along before COVID or just as COVID started have barely been to courtrooms. I've been to most of the courthouses in the state and many out of state. Nonetheless, Bakersfield. So what we did was we had demanded that the defense bring this witness in under the code, and we said, we want him there. The guy said, I ain't coming. Okay, doesn't matter. What we did was we took clips of his testimony and we put those into videos and we just played them for the jury. It was so much better because we controlled what got in. They had an empty chair. It was silly that he didn't show up. Anyways, it's not a great clip, but it's a clip. Hang on. And it is silent. Maybe the people on Zoom can hear it.
Your speaker.
That's okay. Basically, what he's saying there is where this accident happened, there's a couple of different lanes, and he said he was going to go through a different set of lanes, and that was his testimony. Nonetheless, so what I did was I hired a company, and this company basically took all the physical evidence. They looked at photos of all the different damaged vehicles. They looked at skid marks. They looked at damage on the K-rail. They looked at the testimony, and they came up with opinions of who was driving where, when, and how. You want to admit that person?
Yeah.
Okay. So what they did was they recreated it. Here's the truck hitting my client, and my client getting bounced into the K-rail. K-rail is that thing in between the 2 lanes. So again, semi-truck hits her, knocks her into vehicle 2, she gets hit by vehicle 3, and she hits the wall. Okay. Now, what we did was we brought in all the people driving all the vehicles. We had each one testify. And when I did the opening statement for the jury, I told the jury, look, you're going to hear 4 different versions. You ever heard the old parable about an elephant and you press 5 blind people are trying to figure out what an elephant looks like? One's touching the ear, one's touching the leg, one's touching the tail, one's touching the side, and one's touching the trunk. Each one has a different view. They don't see the whole thing. All 4 of these people saw this, and here's how we're going to put it all together. And we had these cut into slides for the opening statement. Judge said, Mr. Lazarus, I'm not going to let you show the slides. But Your Honor, they're not objecting to them. I'm not going to do it. Okay. So what we did was I took a piece of parchment paper and I drew each of the 5 slides. Here's the lanes. Here's accident 1. Put up on the wall. Here's accident 2. Put up on the wall. And I did this for the jury. Not only did it work better than the slides, Nobody knew the case better. No one should ever know your case better than you, by the way. We knew the case better than the other side. And when they saw that, they went, we're going to give it to them. They have to like you. If they don't like you, they'll find a way to tag you. If they like you, they'll give you what you should get. Okay. So always be able to pivot. But this is demonstrative, this video. Helped explain the expert's opinion. All those numbers on the side there, those explain the vehicle speeds at different points. You notice the changing speeds. Okay. Now, some of you guys said you were going to do programming. This is done with, I think, CAD. I don't know if any of you guys study CAD. Learn it.
Yeah. Good
money. Okay. I pay these guys more than anybody. They make a ton. Okay. Excellent work. You guys know math. You're all engineers, right? Okay. Good opportunities there, guys. All right. Another case example real quick. This was a 2-month trial. This gentleman went to verdict. There was a $600,000 offer before the trial. We spent $500,000 on experts before trial, knowing we could lose. Knowing we could lose on some very important issues. So we basically bought a house when we put this trial on. Not a single dime of attorney time. We're just talking about experts. $500,000. 2 months of my life, 2 months of my co-counsel's life. In a courtroom where we're telling a jury, here's what happened, and all these other experts are saying it didn't happen this way. Moving on. So this is a video. We had to fight to get it authenticated. Not only do we bring in the expert to explain to the judge, to lay foundation for the speeds and the distances, but we also brought in the animator to explain how he made that show up like this. This gentleman, Mr. Evans, was driving straight on this road. A vehicle is waiting to make a left turn. The vehicle watches a car go by from that far right and goes past where she's going to turn. As she watches that, her head is to the right. Before she does that, a few seconds, like 15 seconds before, she looked left, she looked right, she sees a car coming. It's coming. All right. It's safe for me to go. She goes. She forgot to look left again. She's not a bad person. She just made a mistake. Now,
You get something like that into the courtroom. That's crazy.
We had to do 402 hearings, meaning the judge allowed the defense to basically line my experts up and ask them, how did you come up with this? What did you use for that? What was the evidence of this? What was the point for that? How did you come up with this number? And they did it. They did it a long way. They did every single calculation based on every piece of evidence. We knew where he landed. We knew the damage to his vehicle. We knew the damage to her vehicle. We knew the point of impact. It was just doing the numbers. So, in this instance, I'm going to show you another view. His head was 12 feet off the ground, which means his body was about 7 feet off the ground, his feet. Okay. This gentleman was lucky to survive. He suffered a frontal lobe injury. He basically got a lobotomy right there on the street. He lost his right frontal lobe. He also lost his olfactory nerve, which is the nerve that allows you to smell. He can't smell fire. He can't smell bad food. He can't taste food the same anymore. It is a risk if he's asleep and the fire happens and the smoke alarm doesn't go off. He also, anybody here see Groundhog Day, Bill Murray? Okay. Not to be funny. He had no long-term memory. Only had short-term memory. So every day he would show up to work very early. He didn't know what time was. Also, as he went to work, he couldn't learn new things. So one of the things that we were telling the defense, please join us. Hi, guys. All good. What we were telling the defense was he can't do his job. He's missing a big chunk of his brain. Well, he's been working for 3 years since the accident. Why is he still working and you're telling us he can't do the job? We took depositions of his employer. We couldn't figure out how he could still do this job. It baffled us and he couldn't express it. We finally got to the last deposition and we said, what do you do every day with this guy? Well, basically, I work with him all day. I stand next to him. I press all the buttons. I move all the levers. And he stands next to me and does nothing. Oh, the employer was so afraid of getting sued for letting him go that instead of letting him go, they hired another guy to do his job and stand there while the other person did it. All of a sudden, all these light bulbs went on. Oh, okay. Now we know why he's still employed. His brain doesn't work, so they have another person doing it for him. He has an external frontal lobe. Okay. This gentleman suffered what we call a Le Fort 3 fracture. A Le Fort 3 fracture is something you never see happen. Le Fort 1, basically you have 3 connection points between the top of your skull and the bottom half of your skull. A Le Fort 1 means that one's broken. Le Fort 2 means 2 are broken. Le Fort 3 means the top of your skull and the bottom of your skull are not connected. People don't survive that. He did. So what we did was we took a CT scan. We had it sent to a company called Authentic 3D, and we had them turn it into a video. I'd like to show it to you guys. And basically, it helped to demonstrate, and yes, it was authenticated because we had the actual CT scans, turned into just, like you make those little cartoons when you flip the pages. That's essentially what it is. CT is X-ray technology. It basically takes pictures of bones. And the bones are taken in slides so that they can look at you from different angles. Unlike an X-ray, it just takes a view of you through your body. You can see where it's broken all the way through. These are massive, massive fractures. Did this help the jury to understand it? Absolutely. Did the defense hate it? Absolutely. Okay. Was it authenticated? Absolutely. That damage is massive. His major injury was to the right side. Okay. When the defense put an orthopedic doctor in front of the jury, the orthopedic doctor said, your client did not suffer any orthopedic injuries because he did not complain about his orthopedic injuries in the first 80 days following the accident. And our one question to that doctor was, you're an orthopedic doctor, yeah, okay. You've reviewed the records, yeah. One question. The first 80 days of this man's life after the accident, was he awake or was he comatose? One of the best moments of my legal career. Okay. God love him. Would you check and make sure that he wasn't comatose, sir? I think he was comatose. Yes, he was.
Wow.
Okay. So he got impeached, which is nice. We all know what impeachment is. Well, we'll explain it. Welcome. That was his pre-surgery. I want to show you just a moment after his surgery to fix his skull. You saw all those big gaps in his brain, or not his brain, his skull. Now you see metal that they use to put it all back together.
Wow.
They basically reconstructed his face. He did not have the same face before and after. Okay. He also, when you have a brain injury like that, you have a change in your personality. Brain injuries, you have lost memory, you have cognitive problems, you have sensitivity to light, sound, you have ringing in your ears, depression, fatigue, but you also get mood swings. He turned into a very mood swingy kind of guy. It was very rough. 2-month trial, direct examination of him in front of the jury. I spent 20 minutes. That's all I did. 20 minutes, he was on, he was off. There were other people on for days. His was pretty clear, but he looks normal on the outside. Nonetheless, so you see the repairs that were done. This, I want to share with you because This was the first time that anybody knows of that this evidence got in front of a jury, much less into an animation. Sorry, how are we doing on time? Are we okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. This is called a DTI scan. DTI scans are a little bit different than MRIs. You guys have heard of MRIs, you've heard of CT scans. MRIs show us soft tissues. CTs and X-rays show us bones. DTI expresses to us axons. What's an axon? An axon is a cable. You have in your brain a computer. The computer is made up of neurons. All these billions of little computers that turn on and off. And they're all connected by a network of cables. Those network of cables can now be studied on DTI scans. The axons in his brain, he lost a good 20% of them plus. Okay. That was the first time I had ever seen a DTI scan admitted, much less animated, and we were the ones that got it in. Those red spots, okay, that's the brain. Those are the axons that work. The red spots that you will see are the areas that were gone. Okay. What does that mean? Of course, it means he has damage in the present. But all of us, you ever heard the old college joke? Hey, you only use 20% of your brain. That means you have 4 party brains, right? Okay. You don't. Those 4 party brains are to keep you from becoming demented when you get old. As you get older, your brain starts to deteriorate. As it deteriorates, neurons die, axons break and die. If enough of them happen, you become demented. You've seen older people, very demented. It's because they're losing axons and neurons. Okay, it's going to happen to this gentleman too early. Nonetheless, what were our biggest issues on the case? One, they tried to say that we were not wearing what was called a DOT, Department of Transportation helmet. We weren't. We were wearing a novelty helmet, which didn't have the same protections afforded. We fought about that with the defense for about a week. The jury gave them 3% discount because it was the wrong helmet. The accident still would have caused the same injuries, except for 3% of it, according to them. Second issue was the biggest issue, vicarious liability. When you have an employee, some of you have jobs, right? Anybody here have a job? Okay. When you go to work, you go and come to work, use your own car, right? It's California. You don't take the subway. Anybody here take a subway? Okay, good. All right. I don't stand corrected. Anyways, for those that drive their cars to and from work, if you get into an accident, it's not the employer's fault. It's the going and coming rule. You are driving to and from work for your own benefit. It's not anything to do with your job. You get in an accident, it's your money. Unless you drive your car for work for the employer. So I'm a lawyer. I drive my car to depositions, to court, to conferences, to clients, to scenes, to investigate them. When I drive my car to and from work, the company's on the hook. Okay. This case, they tried to say this person didn't use their car for work. We got her to testify. Yeah, I do use my car for work. I do the banking. I drive around, I go to conferences. They don't give me a car for conferences. I this stuff. I drive for work. They brought in witnesses to lie. The jury hated it. The jury found that she was in the course and scope, and they hated them for lying because they got caught. Okay? Don't lie. Whatever happens, your best bet is to always tell the truth. So in that case, the jury did find that the defendant's policy of $100,000 wasn't the only policy. The employer's policy was also on the hook, and it was a very significant policy. Folks, I got to tell you, it's been absolutely a privilege. Thank you, and I wish you all very, very well. If there's anything I can answer for you, you've been really terrific. Thank you, and thank you, Greg.
Okay, I made my presentation a little short because I've talked to you guys before, and we're all used to talking tech, and I wanted to have a different conversation, and no one has that conversation as well as Mark does. So thank you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about me. I recently got my CISSP. I'm very happy about it. Basically, it says that I know my security risk as it relates to business at about 1 inch deep and 1 mile wide. So that's pretty much me. Live a normal life, do techie things, deal with lots of screwdrivers and computers that may or may not agree with me on any particular day. But let's talk about this business. So certifications. You guys are always talking about certifications, alphabet soup after your name. You go on LinkedIn, you say, I am such and such. I am Joe Schmo with this many letters after my name. Does it make you more qualified? Does it make you more of an expert? Does it make you more hireable? Debatable, but it really, especially early in your careers, you have to ask yourself, where am I going to put my time and my money? Where is it actually going to make me better, more employable, better on the bench, better to show that you're adding value. We'll talk about that more in a second. And also, what areas of digital forensics? I think Marc brought up a great bunch of points in terms of all these different areas of forensics that you can go into. It's not just pulling email evidence. It could be a crime scene recreation. It could be pulling computers out of cars. By the way, did you know that cars don't just have a data recorder? They actually have tens of data recorders scattered all over the car that you can pull out separately. Like the seatbelts individually have controllers, and you can interface individually with the seatbelt controllers. Like it's all, yeah. Do Volkswagen, is Volkswagen made by the bad group, who is also makes Audi, also makes Porsche, also makes Lamborghini, all makes Bentley. And is it more cost effective for them to have a parts bin that's the same across the board? Yes, your new Beetle has all the tech in it. Yeah, and the Germans, they don't keep it simple. So yeah, so definitely digital forensics has a lot of different areas to go into. And the best piece of advice that I can give you on that is do something that you enjoy, specialize, and then it'll take you places. Like you said, be those guys that on the weekends are pulling an extra 3 or 4K for a weekend of work. Yeah, and they go out there with a pair of tin snips. They basically could chop off a part of the fender, get into some access wires, and then they pull it out. Pretty cool. Okay, so I wanted to show this little couple of screenshots. This is actually one big screenshot. This is made by what company makes the CEH? That's I squared C. Who makes the CEH certification?
EC Council guys.
No, I can't remember. It's one of a million certification companies, and this is their progression chart. You don't need all of these. There's let's see, laser pointer button. Where are you? Up. Okay. I wanted to make sure the top one wasn't turning it off or something. Yeah. So core CEH, it turns into CCT. These ones here start going into essentially everything here is core. And this one here is $750. This one here is another like $900. Each of these have a study course, which you can easily spend $500, $1,000, 6 months of your time. Does it actually make you more employable? Yeah, I don't think so, by and large. But they are kind of pushing that on you. So don't feel that you need alphabet soup unless it's making you smarter, unless it's making you more worldly, being more able to apply your knowledge to some area. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about tools. We all love tools. It's not about knowing all the tools. There's FTK, there is Magnet, there's all the different SIMs out there. They all have their own set of certifications for each of them, and you don't need them all. What you need to know is you need to know fundamentals. You need to know how to pick up a new tool and learn it, and you have to know that when you come across a situation that's weird, and you constantly do. One of my friends was just dealing with a forensic case dealing with Power BI being used to exfiltrate data out of an incident response situation. And he's like, I don't know Power BI. And this Power BI thing runs 5 databases into it. And we have to figure out what data left. And the customer didn't have any sort of reporting going on. So you have to learn a lot really quick in every situation, especially when you're dealing with
the real world, which like let's say the vehicle forensics we're talking. They don't do just Volkswagens. They do cars, vehicles, if they move. And the trucking industry, by the way, is extra weird. Their data recorders are totally different than the consumer ones. It's a weird world, but they have to know how to roll with it. They have to realize, okay, I've never worked on a Daihatsu truck, but I'm sure that there's a way that I'm sure that if I call up Daihatsu, they have a piece of software which I can purchase from them. It's very similar to the software used by, let's say, this other company, let's say Volvo. And you basically learn how to adapt quickly to the situation using your previous knowledge, which is the reason why I'm kind of against vendor-specific certifications and moving more towards generalized knowledge that can be put towards effective use of your knowledge, along with foundational certifications like Security Plus, CISSP, other certs, which then, if you ever are questioned on your knowledge, having some foundational strong certifications that are well known inside and outside your industry and kind of get you that, okay, you have 10 seconds to decide if this person is worthy of talking to. You get a couple letters after your name, and that's enough. You don't need the alphabet soup, but you do need a couple. You guys right now are working on getting your degrees. That means you're going to have a bachelor's of science that might have a word like cybersecurity, might have digital forensics after it. You might take Dr. Carl's class and say, I have taken a professional course in digital forensics. You say a couple things and you move on. You don't have to list everything under the sun. And I know people that spend all day, every day working on all these letters. I'm saying there's better uses of your time. So yeah. Okay, fundamentals, chain of custody, report writing, DFIR versus digital forensics. These are fundamentals. I'm just talking about fundamentals a second ago. So let's say we're doing a case for legal purposes. How was this evidence handled? Is there a chance that evidence could have changed from the time that you touched it to the time it eventually got presented in court and presented on the reporting in the middle? And the chain of custody says, no, that's not possible because it was handled by this person, handled by this person. It was never left alone. And then you can back up with a very structured way of doing your reporting so that you can defend everything. It's very defensible. It's very important in a digital forensics case. In a digital forensics incident response case, it's less so. It still has to be there, but on there, speed matters. It's less about the case and more about getting a business back on its feet. So it might be there's this really bad event happening, and we need to make this bad event stop happening very quickly because the business is currently losing $3 million every half day, and they will have a lawsuit, but right now closing the wound is number one. So you're kind of crossing that piece. And if you ever talk to a professional incident responder and you talk to a professional digital forensics person, they have a lot in common, but they also say, no, I would never do it that way. And the other person would say that takes way too long. And they argue just a little bit, but that's professional. It's good. It's good for that. They both recognize what the pros and cons and the ins and outs and everything of their two industries. And I'm right here on point 3, adding value. Why did the client hire you? If you're collecting email, we were talking email. Are they asking you for all of the email of these 30 custodians? They might just be literally it. If the lawyer says, I need the email of these 30 custodians and I need it in PDF format, and you tell them during the scoping call, and you say, that's going to be several 100,000 pages of PDF, and it's going to be very difficult to search. Are you sure you want it in that format? They say, absolutely, please give that to me. That's what they want. But you've added your value by giving it perspective. Yeah. Yeah, retainers are awesome. Use retainers heavily. They need you now, they need you less later. Billing is huge, and it's small business. I'm in small business, and cash flow is important. So pay attention in your finance classes; they are very important. But yeah, it's always value. It's the question was, why would you pay that guy all that money just to pull up that one chart? All they got was one chart, and you're paying him like $3K. And you just said he could do it in a weekend. Well, yeah, but without that, I don't have a case. No, but also he's not giving them. That chart came from many, many megabytes of raw data that was horrible that they've already sifted through. They knew how to sift through it. They knew the value that you wanted, and they sifted through all the garbage in order to give you that value and say, when I'm giving you this evidence, every piece of evidence here that I've hand selected for you, I have verified to be correct. You can use it. You're not going to be shot down in court. You're not going to be made a fool, and your case isn't going to be ripped apart because someone realized that you forgot to account for a little detail. So that one chart is perfect. There's nothing wrong with that chart. Just to go back to it, I think that little Bosch chart is fantastic. Which is also different because a lot of people here are doing pen testing. Pen testing is huge, and I've seen the pen testing reports. And oftentimes the pen testing reports are 150 pages long. And the question is every one of those 150 pages, did you verify these are all perfect? Or did you take a scan and say, oh, well, that one there you need to take into a different account? Like maybe you shouldn't have turned in a 150-page pen test report. Maybe the value was what are actually the vulnerabilities that are actually likely to be exploited in your organization. Like what's the value? Why did they pay it for you? Pay you a lot of money for this. So know your value, and that's kind of a general business point. Is just why did they hire you in the first place? Is it to give you this report, or is it to make them more secure? In the case of pen testing. In the case of forensics, why did they hire you? Is it to build a case? Is it to flush out an employee that's embezzling from you, or doing intellectual property theft, or stealing customers, or maybe selling access to your organization so that an external threat actor can go into the organization and rip it apart while you're saying, I was here, I didn't do anything. You actually, but there was an internal person that gave them the keys of the kingdom. Digital forensics finds all that. And sometimes it's you're hired by counsel. Sometimes you're hired by the corporation, but oftentimes they need someone out external to come in and do the work because maybe the internal people are suspect. So it's part of the business. So next piece is climbing the ranks. So let's say you've already gotten a job. You've already been in the business for a while, and you're wondering, how can I promote? How can I get into it? How can I make more money? How can I be more recognized in the industry? Anything like that. And my experience in this is be really good at something. So in the beginning, you're not great at anything because you're new. But I mean, you're okay. You're pretty good, and you're building your foundation. And then so I really encourage everyone to always work under someone smarter than you. In general, if you do, it's a real privilege. Just always try to do that. It's always a great thing. But focus on something. So whether that be in the vehicle forensics, whether that be in malware reversing, that could be in e-discovery and being able to really take mountains of documents. And this whole world runs on documents. I mean, all of your chats on your phones are filled with documents. Your email, the computer event logs, those are mountains of documents. Probably my computer has made a mound of documents while I've been talking, and being able to turn that into something usable. In the modern world, especially with AI, it's a question of how can I take all of this mountain of information and figure out what its purposes are, what core points are, what lawyers can take out of this mix without having to spend huge amounts of money. Because it's in the old days of legal, when everything was done by hand, discovery was extremely expensive because you would take a lot of smart people with a high hourly wage, and they sit there and they turn pages and with a highlighter, and it costs a freaking fortune. And nowadays, you want faster answers. You need to be able to express it, maybe figure out what level of confidence it is. And so it becomes a game of AI, statistics, programming, efficiently handling huge data sets. And that's the modern world. The expectations are high, which is coming into efficiency, which is coming into making sure that your value is extremely high. And that's just the modern world. If you're not adding a lot of value in an efficient way, there is automation that's coming for you. And we just have to all keep that on our shoulder. Yeah, sure.
Regarding your, why did the client hire you? So I'm doing a test report. Would I get paid more if I turned in a 150-page report that you just referred to here at
You get paid exactly the same because you pre-agreed upon the price. But they may not hire you again. I mean, the contract says they're going to pay you for this pen test report, and the deliverable is a report. And if they believe that it was done with any sort of negligence, the contract will likely say that if you contest this report, you have so many days to contest the payables against the contract. So they could fight you on it if they believe that you didn't actually do the work you said you did. But they're definitely not hiring you again. But you might be, but also in your contract, it probably says the most that I can be liable on this contract is the amount paid on this contract. So they can't take you for more than you're trying to get out of this in the first place. But your reputation is tarnished now. Also, the community is small. Everyone knows everyone learns about everything. In one case, if an expert witness is ripped apart, that expert witness probably hasn't been called up by anyone else in the future. So reputation is everything in this field. Also. And all those little runs in with the law, it's a little rough in here. I'm picking on you. No, your reputation's important. So if anyone can make a character attack against you, that's just as good as attacking your actual knowledge on the subject. And Carlton, when I was taking his class, he talked about you write an excellent forensic report, but you make lots of spelling mistakes. And these spelling mistakes mean that you aren't careful. You don't have a high level of attention to detail. So that means the attention to detail you did in your work is also in question. And I don't actually know what problems that your work had, but I'm sure it has them because look how many punctuation mistakes you had. So again, yeah. Okay. So tools. I just want to talk about tools. I brought a bunch of tools. By the way, please check them out and whatnot. This industry is filled with a million things to buy. Your pockets will always be empty as long as you play in this industry. Please bill people. But open source tools, closed source tools, being active in the open source community, sharing scripts. It's all part of it. A lot of people will say that you can only use a tool that has been that's been accepted by the professional community, and that's not true. As long as you can verify that it's accurate. So there's a lot of great scripts on GitHub in order to parse through event logs and whatnot. And they come and they go all the time. So there's no way to have all these tools verified. But remember, I told you a second ago that when you have that piece of evidence that you can stand behind it and you can defend this evidence, I'm not going to go on the stand and I'm not going to defend this evidence by saying that I used this really cool tool off GitHub. Terrible way of describing it. I'm going to find this tool on GitHub. I'm not even going to mention I used the tool on GitHub off the report, but the original evidence that tool ended up finding, I'll be able to defend that using very established methods. Okay. Well, like let's say that you use this tool, which leads you to a particular log, which leads you to another log, which leads you to this. So this great tool that no one is going to stand behind, it gives you an Excel. It gives you an Excel sheet or something, and this Excel sheet has the perfect evidence. And if you stop right there, you can't defend. You don't know where the data came from. You don't know how it processed. You don't know anything about it. So you have to be able to unwind how did that tool get there, which is the reason why programming and whatnot is so important in this industry. Because if you actually want to be great in forensics, you don't blindly use tools. All the really, really great people in this industry that like there's this one guy that developed this program called iLeap, and it basically does all the iOS and Android extractions. And every single time there's an update on your phone, all the databases change, or not all of them, but a lot of them do. And so you have to stay on top of it. And it's all not NoSQL. Anyway, the little database that can be done anywhere. I can't think of the name all of a sudden. They're all over your phone. There are all these JSON files, and there's all these XML files, and they tell things. They tell about how a text message was sent, how it was received, that it wasn't changed, that it was attached to this image, that it was read or not read, all these things. So when you just have a iMessage extractor program, how did it actually extract that? One of my friends, he wrote his master's thesis. I helped him write this thing. It was really fun. because we basically proved that you could manipulate Android text message conversations without being detected by many of the message extractors. So by manipulating the databases, but the message extractors were blindly not looking at our modifications. So being able to actually speak to the data rather than speaking to what the tool blind output's giving you. So again, I actually haven't been on as an expert witness, but I always think if I'm on as expert witness, I assume that there's going to be an opposing counsel expert witness, and I have to be ready to be ripped apart on everything. So every single statement I make in the report needs to be 100% defensible. And the subject matters that I'm speaking on, I need to be able to speak to them. And I can't just say Magnet Axiom said. It's not a good answer. So learn the tools, and learn how to use them. They're all great, but you need to be able to know how they actually work and not just blindly use them. And that'll be kind of the difference between being really great in this field and a little bit more what's the word like currency, being able to just be moved around as a general analyst versus someone that really is advancing the industry, and that's who you want to be. Okay, so places that you can focus your knowledge. So we have your data analysis. So that's I don't know if you guys have ever done a digital forensics case on just a Windows computer, but Windows computer has been running for a couple of years, has maybe 3 gigabytes of raw text files of just EVTX files, just event logs. And that's without even getting into the Windows timeline or the journal or anything else like that. So being able to support mobile and desktop is great. Data analysis, being able to take all of that, combine that with all of your cloud logs. You got your Ensure ID or whatever Microsoft changed the word to. Azure AD is gone. Now it's called Ensure or something. Specialty in ICS OT, power plants, the construction, manufacturing, anything with machines. A lot of times these machines use very, very expensive controllers that are from the late 80s, mid 80s, mid 90s. Yeah. Because that's kind of the typical way that most forensics are looked at. You're expected to be able to process computers. You're expected to be able to process phones. It's where communications happen for everyday people. So I put them together because they're a lumped expectation. They are a different type of processing, but they're kind of the same. I would say the thing that makes people think that mobile is super different is that they don't know how to manually extract all the data. So it's basically they think there's just a bunch of magic tools that'll do it for them. And it's really just data. The people at Belkasoft or Magnet or Celebrate, they're people like us too. They just sell a very expensive piece of software for the rest of us. Unless you're law enforcement, then they crack it all. And if you work for the government, you get to buy tools that the rest of us aren't allowed to buy in order to crack through things that you're not allowed to crack into.
Do they work with the phone manufacturing companies?
No, by and large, no. Supposedly. Usually what it is there are security firms around the world that will find exploits, and then they will build those exploits into products and sell them to law enforcement or to military, or the bad ones will sell it to anyone, and then those people will then do things like zero-click attacks against iPhones. You guys heard of that, where someone can send you a message and you don't even have to click on the message, and now they have a backdoor into your phone. Current price on that's about 10 mil. So if you have a zero-click exploit, it's only good for a little while, because once Apple finds out, they fix it. It's only good for a little bit. So you can either sell it to these companies that will do this, and then they try to keep it under wraps because like Apple is very privacy focused, and they don't like it when there's a backdoor to their phones. Google, I'm wary of Google. They're a data company. They love holding people's data, so I don't trust Google. They say that they protect your data, but I'm not really sure. Okay, report writing. You're going to spend most of your time in front of Microsoft Word. Just real. Lots of report writing. Be able to write clearly. Don't be afraid of long documents. Be very precise. Know how to know how to write clearly, know why you're writing. Don't just, like I said, 150-page pen test reports are garbage. No one cares. Tell them, prioritize what you're trying to do, build them what do you call not artifacts, but exhibits. Build them exhibits that are clear, that have a purpose. Every exhibit is well founded. It's documented. What does this exhibit mean? Where did it come from? What's the pedigree of the evidence here? And have that nice and clean. And by the way, it's okay if your documents aren't super pretty, because in any decent sized firm, you'll have someone that will pretty the whole thing up for you before it goes to the client. Put all the nice letterhead and everything on there. Last little piece. What's my last little bullet point over there? Oh, and cloud. Oh yeah, know the cloud. So know how to use Microsoft Sentinel. Don't be afraid of all the EDR tools out there that are pushing all the data into the EDR clouds of various types, whether it be CrowdStrike or ConnectWise or whatever it is. Microsoft 365, Google Workspace. Get used to these. They're all, you need to be able to extract from them, and you also need to be used to pushing things back to them. So instead of just going cloud to USB drive, it's cloud to cloud to S3 bucket, being able to take 1,000 different desktops and be able to triage all that data into somewhere at scale quickly, being able to do it cheaply. The old way of doing things with things like hardware write blockers, these things take forever. These things are about 6 gigabytes per minute of transfer into a hard drive using a computer. And for evidence collection, they're fantastic, but at scale, you blow budgets. And so it's always the question of, you talk to the lawyers, you talk to your clients, and what's my purpose? Why am I doing this in the first place? And you choose the correct collection method for the type of work you're doing, because your choices will affect the budget, and and in the end, most of this is about money. Everyone else get paid. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't look at the short-term game, look at the long-term game for the unmiked. Absolutely. Legacy is the real world. Everyone's talking about Windows 11, Windows 10, maybe going in and hitting a Azure Active Directory, connecting to a server 2016 server or 2022 server, all this stuff. No. In the real world, that company over there is running Windows Server 2008 on a Server 2000 level Active Directory implementation. These computers are still running Windows XP over there, and there's a BlackBerry over here, and that switch is circa 1999. That's an old Cisco over there, and on and on and on. Legacy is. The modern era was built off of legacy. It all moved its way up. So even though everyone here is young, the old was where it came from. So you have to keep that in mind. Learn the old ways. If you look at my pile of cables over here, do you think that you guys could identify a what's this called? Firewire 400 cord? Yeah. I have this because I had to do a collection of a circa 2000 era iMac, and I had to do a direct disconnection for it. So Firewire 400, and I got like 3 adapters to make that connection turn into my USB-C that was on my computer. Like legacy is where it was born. The other day, I had to collect a server that been decommissioned forever, and it was running a RAID array of Ultra 320. And has anyone used Ultra 320 or Ultra 160? Yeah, well, all the servers used to. So it was a big Dell server, and you had to be able to do a forensic collection of that disk, and it was running Windows NT4. Again, old case, bringing up old evidence, and being able to realize that legacy is real. It didn't have USB ports. Yeah, it was a little challenging.
I think we always learn about the foundation.
Yeah.
I'm never going to run any applications that have vulnerability.
Do you really believe that? Have you well, I mean, have you looked at the at CISA's known exploited vulnerability chart? Yeah, so CISA like 2 years ago came out with this thing called the KEV. So that is vulnerabilities. That's like CVSS and all those different vulnerabilities, CVEs. Except for known exploited vulnerabilities, which means that the government has been told about a real situation that happened where this was really exploited, and that goes on to the known exploited vulnerability database. And further, they just like a few days ago, they made it so there's a subsection, so there's a tag that says this. Not only do we know this was exploited, but this was used in ransomware. So now they have a ransomware section of the pie chart. And SQL injection is still extremely real. Yeah, well, have you heard of MoveIt? Well, MoveIt was used by many of the Fortune 500s and most of the three-letter agencies across the United States and across the world. They don't have three letters, but they have other stuff. And so places like Ernst & Young and the NSA and the FBI and the SEC, they were all using MoveIt to do secure file transfer. So if you wanted to send a secure file inside the organization to an outside party, you don't use Dropbox, you use MoveIt. And it turned out that MoveIt had a SQL injection vulnerability, which gave a system level access, which gave them access to everything, which basically this one attack group, I forget their name, I forget. Basically they hit almost everyone using MoveIt all at once before MoveIt could, the company who makes MoveIt, which I forget the name of the company, they basically said, we don't have a patch, please turn this off immediately. But in the meantime, all your data is exfiltrated. So, I mean, people like Ernst & Young, they carry a lot of sensitive documents. Yeah, so there you go. Real world was all over the headlines, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, billions of dollars of damage. Big one.
You guys are on the right side of the law. You could make more on the other side of it.
I mean, there's a bunch of spots open in Russia. I think that they've been hiring.
Do you have like, I know like some movies like usually police and have some sort of like criminals that they know do you guys have similar tactics where you know hackers that not something like that or no?
I think that everyone in this business I think everyone in this business knows a few people around that says if this were to happen, what do you think?
Right.
And part of this network is having your Rolodex filled with all the right people. So you can just like say, hey, can I just pick your brain for a few minutes, buy you a coffee? And that's a big part of the business. I mean, that's every business. It's not, if you think you can do everything, you're absolutely wrong. So yeah, let's see. That's about it for this. I just wanted to kind of show off a few pieces that I typically deal with on a regular basis here. Being able to have like basically thank you. Basically having like a big CD book of bootables or like a big key ring filled with USB sticks. Instead, I have this little thing here, which is filled with ISOs. And so I plug it in and I have this little switch on the side and I pick what ISO I want. And then it becomes a virtual DVD drive and I boot from it. So I basically have every tool I want to boot from on this little drive right here. So super handy. Instead of having to go and open up like Rufus or something, I just fire up this. So super handy. Sometimes you have hard drives that are failing and they like to shut off on you in the middle of doing things. So you pull out this thing right here. Yeah. Oh, FireWire 400. Yeah. So this little thing here, it basically uses recovery. I use recovery software with it, and it says if the hard drive decides that it stops responding, just hardware power cycle the hard drive real quick, and then try it again. But maybe don't try at that sector. Maybe jump over here. So this is doing a firmware level interception of the hard drive data transfers to get you through those hard drives, because sometimes evidence is treated roughly, but you still want it. Some of those cars look like they've been beat up a little bit, and the data may not come out nicely. Yeah. So, and in those cases, you can do chip off. So you can actually take the actual memory chips off of things and rebuild them onto a working circuit board. Maybe the circuit board was broken in half, but you can take the chips off, go on eBay, buy a working module of that, make sure it's updated to the exact same firmware as that one, bring it over, and now you have extraction. Costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time, but it's the case. That's the data, even though the black box is bent in half. Being able to deal with like Mac. Mac is hard. It's different than Windows. They kind of do their own thing. So you don't just image Mac with regular tools. You have special Mac tools. I use Sumeri ITR. There's Macquisition made by Celebrate, other things like that. You have all your little tools like that. So you got all your little bits and whatnot to go into laptops and pull things apart and pull out hard drives manually. Being able to deal with like this for NVMe drives. Some of them will. Yeah. There's tamper evidence switches in some servers where they will actually clear the TPM, which has your encryption keys on it if they're opened. But again, everyone here is in security, which means that, or mostly, and security is terrible in most places. Most places do not. Okay, so if you take the entirety of all businesses and you carve them out into 20 verticals: agriculture, finance, all 20 sections. In 17 of those sections, what's the number one way that attackers get initial access into a network? Super common. Any guesses?
Like physical.
No. I mean, like think at scale. Physical access means you're breaking into someone's building. That's hard. No, at scale. What's the number one way that in 17 out of 20 verticals, attackers get initial access into networks? That's it. Password. They literally just guess passwords and they take known credentials and they get in. So according to roughly 20,000 incidents over the last 10 years, according to a recent report by the Sygenta Institute, which I highly recommend you take a look at. They have great reports called the Iris reports. 17 out of 20 verticals, that's the way they get in initially. It's just valid credentials. And phishing is a different category. And it's like number 2 on a number of them. But yeah, literally just passwords. So basically people do security poorly. Security is hard. And so sometimes the really advanced attacks aren't what you're looking for. You're looking for the realistic attacks of how this is actually going to happen. It's where risk management comes into. If you work with insurance companies all the time, these people, all they talk is risk. They don't talk dollars, they talk risk. And that's what you should be thinking of when you think as a cybersecurity professional. Well, we're talking forensics, but it overlaps a lot. Is not just think of Occam's razor. The simplest solution is usually the solution. So even though there was a 0 day, it's more than likely that maybe the users changed their password from summer 2023 exclamation point over to fall 2023 exclamation point because you have a password policy that says you have to change it every 60 days. And this is real. I've seen a lot of people's passwords, and that's what when you set a 45-day password policy, their passwords get really predictable, and attackers know that. The Experian attack. How did the Experian attack happen initially? There was a 5K fun run that was put on for the employees. An outside company was hired to do a 5K fun run. So all the employees signed up on the 5K fun run website, and they all ran their 5K fun run. And a few months later, that 5K company was popped, and attackers took all their passwords and took everything. And guess what? A bunch of the Experian employees used the same password for the 5K fun run as they did for their enterprise. And so the attackers said, hey, I see a bunch of Experian.com addresses here. Let's just try it out on the company portal. They got some low-level user access, and then they managed to escalate their way up. And actually, kind of really cool situation of that was the attackers weren't just an attacker group. There was actually 3 separate attacker groups who found that on their own individually. And when they finally flushed all the bad guys out, they realized there was 3 threat actor groups in there at the same time. because it was possible. So again, Occam's razor. Simple way is the most likely way. Simple answer is the most likely answer. And so think like that. Don't think of those weird little edge cases. It's like going on WebMD. Everyone thinks that they got the weirdest disease in the world. Anyway, that's all I got. If you guys have any questions about forensics, about the real world, I'd love to hear it.